If you walk onto a dealership lot in 2026 thinking you are buying a truck, you are already making a mistake. Because you are not buying a machine anymore. You are buying a data device on wheels. That $80,000 price tag sitting on the windshield. It is not just paying for steel. It is not just paying for horsepower. It is not just paying for towing capacity or comfort. That price includes something most people never even think about: surveillance. And the reason this matters right now is because thousands of truck owners are starting to notice something that does not make sense on the surface. Their insurance premiums are going up. Not by a little, but by hundreds or even thousands of dollars. No accidents. No speeding tickets. No claims. No obvious reason. And naturally they assume something is wrong. A mistake. A system error. A random adjustment. But it is not random. There is a reason. And the reason is sitting in their driveway. Their truck is watching them. Every time you press the brake harder than normal. Every time you accelerate quickly to merge into traffic. Every time you drive a little faster than the posted limit. Every late-night drive. Every sharp turn. Every sudden correction. It is all being recorded. Logged. Timestamped. Analyzed. And most importantly, transmitted. This is not speculation anymore. This is not some hidden theory floating around forums. This is already happening. Modern trucks are now built with cellular connections integrated directly into the vehicle. Not as an optional add-on. Not as something you can easily remove. It is part of the system. Dealerships present these features as benefits: convenience, safety, connectivity, remote start from your phone, emergency assistance if you crash, vehicle health reports sent directly to you, navigation updates in real time. And on the surface, all of that sounds useful. But what they do not explain clearly is that the same system enabling those features is also collecting behavioral driving data constantly. Your habits. Your patterns. Now here is where things start to go deeper. Because once you understand that your truck is collecting data, and once you accept that this data is being used outside your control, the next question becomes unavoidable. Who actually owns the machine you are driving? On paper the answer looks simple. Your name is on the title. You made the down payment. You are making the monthly payments. Or maybe you paid cash. But in reality, ownership is no longer that straightforward. Because modern vehicles are no longer defined purely by hardware. They are defined by software. And software does not work the same way as a mechanical system. You can own a physical object, but you do not automatically own the software inside it. That software is licensed, not sold. And that one detail changes everything. Because a licensed system comes with rules, restrictions, permissions. The manufacturer still maintains control over how that system behaves. They can update it, modify it, restrict it, or expand it, without ever touching the physical truck sitting in your driveway. Over-the-air updates. That is what they call it. And again, it sounds convenient. Fixes delivered instantly. Performance improvements. New features added without visiting a dealership. But what that also means is that the behavior of your vehicle can change after you buy it. Not because something broke, but because something was updated. Imagine buying a truck with a certain level of performance. Certain features enabled. Certain capabilities available. And months later, without your direct involvement, those capabilities change. Maybe throttle response is adjusted. Maybe fuel mapping is altered. Maybe a feature you used is now locked behind a subscription. That is not a mechanical failure. That is controlled access. And this is already happening in different forms across the industry. Features like heated seats, remote start, advanced driving modes. Some are now being offered as subscription services, meaning the hardware is already installed in your truck. You already pay. Now once you start seeing the system for what it is, it becomes impossible to unsee it. Because everything begins to connect. The data collection, the software control, the remote updates, the subscription features. Individually, they look like convenience. Together, they form a structure. And that structure is changing the relationship between you and your vehicle. But there is another layer most people are not even thinking about yet. And that is dependency. Because the more advanced these systems become, the more your truck depends on things outside of itself. Not just fuel. Not just maintenance. But connectivity. Server access. Software validation. Digital communication with systems you cannot see. Your truck is no longer a closed machine. It is part of a network. And networks require stability. They require uptime. They require support. So the question becomes, what happens when that support changes? What happens when a manufacturer decides to stop supporting a system? Not because it stopped working, but because it is no longer profitable to maintain. We have already seen versions of this in other industries. Phones that stop receiving updates. Apps that stop functioning. Devices that lose compatibility over time. Now apply that same model to a truck. A machine you depend on for transportation. For work. For daily life. If a critical system depends on software support, and that support is removed, the hardware may still be physically intact, but functionally, it becomes limited. Or in some cases, unusable. This is what some mechanics and industry insiders are starting to quietly call the soft shutdown. Not a dramatic failure. Not an engine blowing up. But a gradual loss of functionality. A feature stops working. A module cannot be replaced. A system throws errors that cannot be cleared without proprietary tools. And suddenly, a perfectly good truck becomes difficult to keep on the road. Not because it is worn out, but because it is locked out. That is a very different kind of failure. And it is one that traditional vet. Now at this point, you are no longer just looking at trucks the same way. Because once you understand data, once you understand control, once you understand dependency, you start to notice something else. Restriction. Not obvious at first. Not something clearly written on a spec sheet, but built quietly into the system. Because modern connected vehicles are not just designed to operate. They are designed to operate within boundaries. Digital boundaries. And those boundaries are not always defined by you. They can be defined by software, by regulations, by manufacturers, by external systems connected to the vehicle. This is where things begin to move beyond convenience and into limitation. Because once a vehicle is fully connected, its behavior can be shaped in ways that were never possible before. Speed can be limited not just mechanically, but digitally. Power delivery can be adjusted based on conditions or rules embedded in the system. Certain features can be enabled or disabled depending on location, time, or usage patterns. This is often introduced under the idea of safety, efficiency, compliance. And again, individually, each feature can be justified. But together, they form a system where the vehicle is no longer completely neutral. It is guided, directed, and in some cases, restricted. Now think about how that applies in real situations. You are driving through an area where new regulations have been introduced. Your vehicle recognizes the zone through GPS data and automatically limits your speed, not as a suggestion, but as a hard cap. You press the accelerator, but the response is no longer fully yours. Or imagine a scenario where emissions rules change. Instead of requiring a physical modification, a software update is pushed, and suddenly, your truck operates differently. Reduced power, different throttle response, altered performance characteristics. Not because you chose it, but because it was required. Now expand that idea further. Because once control is digital, it can be scaled. Fleet vehicles, commercial TR. Now everything leads to this point. Because once you understand data, control, dependency, restriction. You start to see the bigger picture. This is not just about trucks anymore. This is about the future of ownership itself. Because what is happening in the automotive world is not isolated. It is part of a much larger shift. From products you own to systems you participate in. And that shift changes the rules completely. In the past, when you bought a truck, the transaction was simple. You paid for it. You owned it. You controlled it. End of story. There were no hidden layers. No ongoing permissions. No external systems involved in daily operation. If it ran, it was yours. If it broke, you fixed it. That was the relationship. Clear, direct, uncomplicated. But now, that relationship is being rewritten. Because modern vehicles are no longer standalone machines. They are integrated into digital ecosystems. Ecosystems that extend beyond the physical truck. Into servers, networks, data platforms, subscription systems. And once you are inside that ecosystem, ownership becomes something different. It becomes conditional. Not in an obvious way. You still have the keys. You still drive the truck. You still maintain it. But certain aspects of that ownership are no longer entirely yours. They are shared or controlled externally. And that creates a new kind of dependency. Not just on the machine, but on the system behind the machine. Now think about how this affects long-term freedom. Because ownership has always been tied to independence. The ability to go where you want, when you want, without asking permission. The ability to rely on your vehicle, without external interference. But when control is partially external, that independence changes. Not disappears completely, but becomes limited. Shaped by rules you do not fully control. And this is where the concept of digital leverage comes into play. Because once a system has visibility into your behavior, and influence over your vehicle, it also has leverage. Not necessarily used aggressively. Now this is where everything comes together. Because by this point, you are not just looking at trucks anymore. You are looking at a decision. A real one. Not about brand. Not about trim level. Not about horsepower numbers. But about direction. Because the industry has already chosen its path. More connectivity. More automation. More system-level control. That is not slowing down. That is accelerating. Every new model year adds more layers. More sensors. More software. More integration with external systems. And for many buyers, that will feel like progress. Smoother experience. More features. Less effort behind the wheel. And for some use cases, that works. But at the same time, something else is happening. Quietly. In the background. A growing number of drivers, mechanics, independent thinkers, are choosing a different direction. Not loudly. Not as a trend. But deliberately. They are stepping away from fully connected systems. Not completely rejecting modern vehicles, but being selective, careful, intentional. They are asking different questions. Not what can this truck do, but what can this truck do without permission? Not how advanced is this system, but how dependent is it? Not how comfortable is the drive, but how much control do I actually have? And those questions lead to very different decisions. Sometimes that means keeping an older truck, maintaining it, investing in it, extending its life. Because even with wear and age, it offers something newer vehicles are moving away from. Consistency. It behaves the same way every time. No updates changing its behavior. No hidden systems adjusting performance. Just mechanical response. Reliable. Predictable. Understandable. Other times, it means buying newer, but with awareness. Reading the fine print. Understanding the systems. Knowing what is connected. Knowing what is optional. Knowing what can be disabled. Because not every modern truck is identical. There are levels to this. Some are deeply integrated. Others still allow more independence. But that window is narrowing. As standards, Chan.